First contact fallout. The Araxis Confederation vessel Eternal Wisdom hung in Earth's orbit like a colossal obsidian arrowhead, its surface rippling with iridescent patterns that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Captain Thelios Vorn stood on the command deck, his 4 eyes narrowed as he studied the blue-green planet below. His crystalline exoskeleton glinted under the ambient light as he turned to address his senior officers. "Another primitive world," he said, mandibles clicking in what his species considered a dismissive gesture. "Preliminary scans confirm what our long-range assessments indicated. Pre-interstellar civilization, limited to their own solar system, fragmented planetary governance. Standard Protocol 7 should suffice." Science Officer Kyra Nexus, a methane-breathing entity whose translucent body housed swirling clouds of bioluminescent gases, floated closer to the main display. Unlike her captain, she appeared troubled by the data streaming across their screens. "With respect, Captain, there are anomalies in these readings that I cannot explain," she said, her voice a melodic synthesis of gas exchanges within her communication sac. "Their energy signatures are inconsistent with their apparent technological level, and their communications network is far more complex than anything we've seen from a pre-interstellar species." Ambassador Nix, the delegation's diplomatic lead and member of the ancient Silicarid race, stepped forward. Unlike the others, Nix had studied thousands of emerging civilizations across the galaxy. The Silicarids were the oldest members of the Confederation, silicon-based entities who had evolved over millions of years and whose thought processes operated at speeds incomprehensible to most organic minds. "We've seen technological inconsistencies before," Nix said, crystalline structures shifting across his surface in patterns that conveyed deep thought, usually indicative of stolen or salvaged technology from crashed explorers. "Proceed with Protocol 7, but increase defensive posture to Level 3. No need for excessive caution, but prudence is warranted." The Araxis Confederation had a standard procedure for first contact with pre-interstellar species. They would demonstrate their technological superiority, establish communication, and begin the process of cultural and technological integration. Over 10,000 years, this approach had never failed. The Confederation had incorporated hundreds of species into their collective, guiding them toward what they considered proper galactic citizenship. They had no reason to expect Earth would be any different. The first indication that something was amiss came when their broadcast was answered not by a single governmental entity, but by a unified response from something called the United Earth Response Protocol. The message was transmitted simultaneously in all 376 communication formats the Confederation vessel had broadcast in. An impossibility for a species that shouldn't even have been able to decode most of those formats. "Greetings, Araxis Confederation vessel Eternal Wisdom," came the response in perfect Confederacy standard. "Earth welcomes peaceful contact. We request you maintain your current orbital position while our diplomatic team prepares for communication. Any deviation from your current trajectory will be considered a hostile action." Silence fell across the command deck. Captain Vorn's exoskeleton rattled in what his species considered laughter. "They've identified our ship," murmured Communications Officer Zeth, his tentacles writhing in agitation. That's not possible. Our identification codes are encrypted using quantum algorithms that would take millennia to decode," finished Ambassador Nix, crystalline surface now pulsing with patterns that indicated deep concern. "Unless they already had the key." Captain Vorn dismissed these concerns with a wave of his upper limb. "Coincidence or lucky guess? Proceed with descent to the designated coordinates. Prepare the integration protocol presentation." The Eternal Wisdom began its descent toward Earth's atmosphere, approaching the Northern Hemisphere's largest landmass. That's when every system on the ship simultaneously went dark. Power failed. Backup systems failed. Even the isolated emergency quantum core, designed to function regardless of external conditions, simply ceased to operate. For 3 terrible seconds, the most advanced vessel in the Confederation fleet hung in space, utterly dead. When the systems reactivated, They discovered they had been moved. The ship now orbited exactly 100,000 kilometers from Earth, a perfectly precise distance that could not possibly have been accidental. "What just happened?" demanded Captain Vorn, his exoskeleton now clicking rapidly in agitation. "Full status report, Captain." Science Officer Kyra's voice wavered. "We were transported instantaneously, without any detectable spatial distortion or energy expenditure. That's not supposed to be possible." Ambassador Nix was already reviewing the data. "They have transportation technology that operates on principles we don't understand," he said quietly. "A civilization limited to their solar system should not possess such capabilities." A new transmission appeared on their newly restored communication systems. A human face, pink-skinned, with dark hair and eyes that reflected an unsettling intelligence. "This is Dr. Elena Novak of the United Earth Response Protocol. Your vessel attempted to deviate from our instructions. That was unwise. We have temporarily neutralized your propulsion and weapons systems to ensure the safety of both our peoples. A diplomatic shuttle will dock with your vessel in 30 minutes. Please prepare your representatives accordingly." Before anyone could respond, the transmission ended. "Neutralized our systems," Captain Vorn sputtered. "Scan for any attached devices or intrusion points." "There are none, Captain," replied the ship's security chief. "They didn't attack our systems. They simply rewrote them. At a fundamental level, coding that would have taken our best minds decades to develop was implemented in seconds." Ambassador Nix's crystalline form had gone utterly still, a sign of extreme shock in his species. "We have gravely misunderstood the situation," he said softly. "This is not a primitive world awaiting guidance. This is something else entirely." Exactly 30 minutes later, a small Earth vessel approached the Eternal Wisdom. It was elegantly designed, with no visible propulsion system, and it moved with a grace that belied its apparent simplicity. It docked with a gentle precision that the Confederation's best pilots would have envied. When the airlock opened, 5 humans entered the ship. They wore no protective gear despite the fact that the atmosphere aboard the Eternal Wisdom should have been toxic to their biology. They showed no signs of discomfort under the different gravity. They simply walked onto the alien vessel as though they were entering a familiar space. The leader stepped forward, the same woman who had transmitted the message. Dr. Elena Novak was of average height for her species, with an unassuming appearance that belied the power she apparently wielded. "Thank you for hosting us," she said, speaking perfect Confederacy standard without any translation device. "I apologize for the dramatic demonstration, but we find that new contacts often require a clear understanding of the actual relationship dynamics before productive dialogue can begin." Ambassador Nix moved forward, his crystalline form shifting into the most diplomatic configuration possible. "Your capabilities are unexpected," he admitted. "Our assessment of your civilization appears to have been flawed." Dr. Novak smiled. "Not flawed. We simply let you see what we wanted you to see. Humanity learned long ago that it's sometimes advantageous to be underestimated." She gestured to her companions. "My team represents Earth's diplomatic, scientific, and security interests. We are prepared to discuss cultural exchange, technological cooperation, and the terms of our relationship with the Araxis Confederation." Terms. Captain Vorn's translator struggled with his indignant tone. "The Confederation does not negotiate terms with pre-Confederation worlds. We offer guidance and integration into." "Captain," Dr. Novak interrupted gently, "I believe we've already demonstrated that the standard protocols don't apply in this situation. Humanity isn't seeking admission to your Confederation. We're proposing an alliance between equals." "Impossible." The captain sputtered. "You're confined to a single solar system." One of the other humans, a tall man with dark skin and a completely calm demeanor, stepped forward. "Actually, Captain Vorn, that's incorrect. We maintain 17 extrasolar colonies across 9 star systems. We simply don't advertise their presence. We find it strategically advantageous to maintain a certain profile. Ambassador Nix's crystalline form was cycling through patterns so quickly that the ship's translators couldn't keep up. "How did you know the captain's name?" he finally managed to ask. "We haven't introduced ourselves." Dr. Novak's smile never wavered. "The same way we know that this vessel carries 27 different species representing the Araxis Confederation leadership, that you're carrying 6 different types of what you consider planet-clearing weapons, and that your Confederation has integrated 342 species over the past 10 millennia, often against their will." Silence fell across the command deck. Even Captain Vorn seemed at a loss for words. "You've been watching us," Ambassador Nix realized. "For how long?" "We intercepted our first Confederation transmission approximately 300 years ago," replied Dr. Novak. "We've been studying you ever since. Your encryption was challenging, but not insurmountable. Your species create brilliant technology, but you tend to stop innovating once something works. That creates vulnerabilities." The implications were staggering. The Confederation had been meticulously planning first contact with Earth, completely unaware that humanity had been observing them for centuries, decoding their communications, understanding their technology, and preparing for this very moment. "This changes everything," Ambassador Nix said quietly. Dr. Novak nodded. "Yes, it does. The question now is whether the Araxis Confederation is prepared to engage with humanity as equals, or if you require further demonstrations of why that would be the wiser course." Captain Vorn's exoskeleton rattled in agitation. But Ambassador Nix moved forward, his crystalline form now settling into a pattern that indicated openness and respect. "No further demonstrations will be necessary, Dr. Novak," the ambassador said. "I believe it's time we learned who humanity truly is." The paradigm shift. 3 months after first contact, Ambassador Nix stood in the Grand Hall of the Confederation Nexus on the capital world of Araxis Prime. Before him stretched the assembled representatives of over 300 species, all waiting to hear his report on the enigma that was humanity. His crystalline form shifted nervously as he prepared to deliver information that would fundamentally alter the Confederation's understanding of its place in the galaxy. "Esteemed representatives," he began, his voice translated simultaneously into hundreds of languages, "I come before you having spent 90 standard cycles on Earth. What I have discovered challenges everything we believed about emergent civilizations, and perhaps about ourselves." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The preliminary reports had already caused considerable controversy, but most had dismissed them as exaggerations or misunderstandings. "Humanity is not merely advanced beyond our initial assessment," Nix continued. "They represent something we have never encountered before. A species that developed along a fundamentally different evolutionary and technological path than any Confederation member." Behind him, holographic displays activated, showing scenes from Earth, cities that blended seamlessly with natural environments, transportation systems that operated on principles the Confederation's best scientists were still struggling to comprehend, energy generation that produced no waste and required no visible infrastructure. "What makes humans unique is not their technology itself, but their approach to development," Nix explained. "Where Confederation species tend to perfect a technology and then standardize it across our civilization, humans continuously reinvent, iterate, and revolutionize their own creations. They have no central technological authority. Their innovation is chaotic, decentralized, and perpetual." The Supreme Counselor of the Araxis Confederation, an ancient energy being named Zorthal, floated forward. "This is precisely why standardization is the cornerstone of Confederation philosophy, Ambassador. Chaotic development leads to instability and eventual collapse. All our historical data confirms this. With respect, Supreme Counselor, our historical data is limited to species that evolved along similar paths to our own," Nix countered. "Humanity represents a different path entirely. They turned their greatest weakness, their short individual lifespans and fragmented social structures, into their greatest strength. The holographic displays shifted to show human history, the dizzying speed of their development from primitive tool users to their current state in less than 10,000 years. By comparison, most Confederation species had taken 50 to 100,000 years to achieve similar advancement. They fail constantly, Nix continued. They embrace failure as a necessary component of progress. Where we perfect and preserve, they discard and reimagine. Their technology doesn't simply advance linearly. It transforms in unexpected directions, creating possibilities we never considered. The assembly hall had grown eerily quiet. The implications were disturbing to many. The Confederation's entire approach to galactic civilization was built on the premise that there was an optimal path of development, and that their role was to guide younger species along that path. But their approach is inefficient, argued the technocratic minister of the silicon-based quorum. Our analysis shows that nearly 60% of human research initiatives fail to produce useful outcomes. And yet, countered Nix, their overall rate of advancement outpaces our own by a factor of 7. They don't fear the inefficiency of failure because they understand that true innovation requires exploration of dead ends. At that moment, the grand doors of the assembly hall opened. Dr. Elena Novak entered, accompanied by a diverse group of humans. The Confederation representatives stirred in surprise. No non-member species had ever been permitted in the sacred hall during a formal assembly. Supreme Counselor Zorthal's energy form flickered in what might have been indignation, but he made no move to stop the proceedings. Dr. Novak stepped forward to stand beside Ambassador Nix. Esteemed representatives of the Araxis Confederation, she began, I thank you for the opportunity to address this assembly. We come not as supplicants seeking admission to your collective, but as neighbors introducing ourselves and offering partnership. She gestured, and the holographic displays shifted again, now showing a three-dimensional map of the galaxy with thousands of points of light representing inhabited systems. For centuries, the Confederation has expanded through a process you call guided integration, she continued. You identify pre-interstellar civilizations, demonstrate your superior technology, and incorporate them into your cultural and technological framework. This approach has built a stable, advanced civilization spanning a significant portion of the galaxy. Many representatives nodded in agreement. This was the Confederation's sacred mission, to bring order and advancement to the chaotic cosmos. But in the process, Dr. Novak said, her voice gentle but unyielding, you have sacrificed something precious. Diversity of thought. By standardizing technology and culture across hundreds of species, you've created a civilization that excels at perfecting existing paradigms, but struggles to imagine new ones. Outrage rippled through the assembly. A representative of the insectoid hive collective rose on his hind legs. Our civilization has stood for over 50,000 years. We have created technological marvels beyond what any single species could achieve. Yes, agreed Dr. Novak, and we admire those achievements greatly. But consider this. In the past 1,000 years, how many truly revolutionary technologies has the Confederation developed? Not refinements of existing systems, but fundamentally new approaches. Uncomfortable silence followed her question. Humanity doesn't wish to replace your civilization with our own, she continued. We propose something more radical, genuine exchange. Not the controlled integration you practice, but a free flow of ideas, even those that challenge existing paradigms. Over the next several hours, the human delegation presented their proposal. They offered access to technologies the Confederation had never imagined, not as gifts to be received passively, but as starting points for collaborative development. They suggested cultural exchanges not just between Earth and the Confederation, but between all member species, many of which had lost touch with their unique heritage during integration. The response was polarized. Younger members of the Assembly were captivated by the possibilities. Older, more conservative representatives saw only chaos and disruption. The debate raged for days. Meanwhile, something unexpected began to happen. The human delegation didn't remain isolated in their assigned quarters during recesses. They mingled freely with Confederation representatives, engaging in informal conversations that often lasted deep into the night cycles. They asked questions that no one had considered for millennia. They listened with genuine curiosity to perspectives from across the galaxy. Seeds were being planted, not through formal proposals, but through the simple power of different minds connecting. 3 weeks after the humans' arrival, a young scientist from the aquatic Merithid species approached the assembly with trembling fins. He had been inspired by a conversation with a human physicist and had subsequently reimagined the principles behind the Confederation's quantum communication network. His prototype, developed in secret with a small team including 2 humans, demonstrated transmission speeds 50 times faster than the current standard, a standard that had remained unchanged for 3,000 years. More innovations followed. A human linguistic approach combined with hive collective pheromone communication created a new form of instantaneous emotional translation. Earth agricultural techniques merged with quorum mineral processing created sustainable food production methods that could transform barren worlds. Each innovation was not merely a technological advancement. It represented a new way of thinking about problems that had been considered solved long ago. 6 months after first contact, Supreme Counselor Zor Thal called a private meeting with Dr. Novak and Ambassador Nix. "Your species has created quite the disruption, Doctor," the ancient energy being said, his translated voice carrying an uncharacteristic note of weariness. "In my 9,000 years, I have never seen the Confederation in such ferment. Is that necessarily a bad thing?" Supreme Counselor Dr. Novak asked gently. Zor Thal's energy form pulsed thoughtfully. "I have spent the past month reviewing Confederation history. What you said in the assembly was correct. Our rate of fundamental innovation has declined steadily over millennia. We became so focused on perfecting and propagating what we knew that we forgot to question our foundations." Ambassador Nix's crystalline form shifted in surprise. The Supreme Counselor was not known for self-reflection or acknowledgement of Confederation limitations. "Humanity reminds us of something we once knew but forgot," Zor Thal continued. "That civilization is not a destination but a journey. That the purpose of knowledge is not merely to preserve but to transform." He floated closer to Dr. Novak. "Your species will not join the Confederation as we initially intended. I believe now that would be a disservice not only to humanity but to ourselves. Instead, I will propose to the Assembly a new form of relationship, an alliance between equals with different strengths to contribute." Dr. Novak smiled. "That is precisely what we hoped for, Supreme Counselor." 1 year after first contact, the galaxy had begun to change. The Treaty of Earth established a new framework for interstellar relations, not the controlled integration of the past, but a network of exchange that respected the unique contributions of each civilization. Araxis Prime, once the centralized heart of the Confederation, became instead the principal hub in a vastly more complex and dynamic network. Humanity's gift to the galaxy wasn't merely their technology but their perspective, their understanding that diversity wasn't merely to be tolerated but celebrated as the engine of progress itself. Ambassador Nix, now appointed as the Confederation's first Minister of Innovation, stood with Dr. Novak on the observation deck of the newly constructed Earth Embassy on Araxis Prime. Below them, representatives from dozens of species mingled in gardens designed to accommodate beings from across the biological spectrum. "They thought we were just another species," Dr. Novak mused, watching the vibrant interactions below. "Another primitive civilization to be guided along the predetermined path." "Instead," Nix replied, his crystalline form shimmering with patterns of profound respect, "you showed us that there are infinite paths through the cosmos, and the greatest wisdom lies not in choosing one perfect route, but in exploring them all." In the Grand Assembly Hall, Supreme Counselor Zor Thal addressed the gathered representatives of what was now called the Galactic Exchange. His energy form pulsed with renewed vigor as he spoke words that would have been unthinkable just a year before. For 50,000 years, we believed we were teaching the galaxy how to evolve. Now we understand that evolution itself is our teacher, and our newest allies, these remarkable humans, have reminded us of its most important lesson, that the universe favors not the strongest or the most stable, but those most responsive to change. Across the galaxy, a new era had begun, and it started because one species had the audacity to suggest that the rules of civilization could be rewritten.